do you guys think that it's safe for the Padres, both you guys and anyone listening to chat, do you think it's safe for the Padres to extend him? Or do you think that the two recent signings, and one being Drew Pomeranz, who literally has been hurt for like 2 years and is never around, and now you immediately sign Robert Suarez, and now Robert Suarez is having nagging elbow injuries. You see Edwin Diaz, and obviously that's kind of a freak incident, but still he goes down. Do you think it is too risky to extend Josh Hader? Or do you think that you look at it and you go, well, this guy's this talented. I don't care if he's in the bullpen and not as valuable of a spot. But I don't know, because it seems like it's a lot more risky to sign pitchers long term as is, but it seems like it's exponentially more risky when it comes to signing guys in the bullpen. Guys that come in and pitch one inning every other day pretty much. So do you think it's too risky now, just kind of because of some past incidents? Or do you think that the Padres, Preller, and everyone looks at this and goes, it doesn't matter. If we failed in those ways, it's different. It's not the same as Josh Hader, because I think you can look at it at both angles, honestly. But what do you think?
I think it depends on what he wants. Because, like, realistically, who would you guys rather have, Edwin Diaz or Hader? If you
Hader.
guys say
Hader's probably going to be better.
Hader, yeah, which means more expensive.
Hader,
yeah,
Edwin Diaz just signed $100 million contract. How much is Hader going to ask? Because you just saw Edwin Diaz signed just a horrible contract on the Mets part, but great contract for him. He's going to come back and ask for more than $100 million. Are we going to really pay a closer $20 million a year when we're also trying to extend Soto and possibly chase after Ohtani?
Dude, that's what I'm saying. It's hard.
No,
it's
yeah,
really hard.
No, Chase absolutely has a point, and that's the difficult thing, man. Is like I really want to extend Josh Hader, but I'm trying to look up his market value on Spot Track right now. Let's see what it is. It's $14.5 million. However, if we look up Edwin Diaz's value before his contract, I bet it's a lot lower than 20 million, because he hadn't. We're talking about Edwin Diaz had just popped off this past year. Edwin Diaz's market value 16.1, so we got 4 million above his market value. And this is where I could see how other teams would be frustrated by Steve Cohen and AJ Preller, because the market value is going up because they like extending guys to big money. But let's say Hader gets 4 million above his market value. That's what, 18 million? However, Josh Hader's been in the game and been great for a lot longer than Edwin Diaz, has a longer track record, has consistently been healthy. Probably also gets around 20 million. And knowing that you have all this cap space next year, you can go out and get a different reliever and hoping Robert Suarez will come back and be your closer. You can find some other closer and use that money on a starting pitcher, because Blake Snell's probably not going to be back. At this rate, Blake Snell's definitely not going to be back. But let's say you go out, you need a starting pitcher. You might need two. I'd rather use that money on a starting pitcher. And I love Josh Hader, man. He's going to be so fun to watch for the rest of the year. He's an exciting player. He's almost a lockdown guy out of the bullpen. I mean, that fastball is an electric fastball, and that backdoor slider that he hits you with after is almost unbeatable. However, there's things that, there's other resources, or there's other holes that the Padres will need to fill. And I don't know if Josh Hader is worth sacrificing that.
That's kind of where I'm at too. Like, it's hard because, like, also let's look. Josh Hader is going to be 30 next season. So say you signed him to the same deal that Diaz got, 5 years, $100 million, right? 20 million a year. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. 30, so yeah, is that right? No, I'm sorry. 30, 31, 30 to 34, right? So are we confident that he's going to be healthy for those years? Because he hasn't really got hurt yet. And Bill Gates says it right here. Sell high on Hader. He has a lot of arms on that arm. There are a lot of miles on that arm. So that's the thing. And you're right. You're going to have to replace Blake Snell. You're going to potentially have Martinez and or Lugo opting out. So, like, it's tough. It is really tough when you look at this, just because you also already signed Robert Suarez. you just had the Drew Pomeranz deal that kind of did not look too good. It doesn't look very good. I mean, it looks horrible. It's one of the worst deals that Padres have had in terms of in Preller's tenure, outside of probably Hosmer. But it's just rough because like you look at it from a talent perspective, you're like, well, of course you want Josh Hader. But you might look back on that deal, whatever he gets, which I think that's the starting price. I think it's going to be more than Diaz's contract. There's no reason for it not to be. For him, there's no reason for him to accept less from the Padres because if he tests the open market, he can probably get more than what Diaz got. So it just seems like I don't know, like, is that really worth it? And I think I could easily see both sides. And the thing is, like, if the Padres are really good and they have a deep playoff run like we're expecting, then how are you gonna say no to that? Because you can't, because then you're looking for an elite closer, and then you don't have that guy, and then you don't have someone reliable in the back of the pen. But then if you look at it from a money standpoint, you go, well, if we're trying to go after Ohtani, or if we're trying to do all this different stuff, and we'll see how accurate that is. If we're trying to re-sign Soto, if we're trying to do this, if we need to add another starter, that's a hard thing to kind of look at and go, okay, we're going to put 20 mil on the payroll for the next 5 years for a closer that's 30 years old. Like, that can really screw you over fast, like really, really fast. Even though at the end of the day, like, you might have to do it. You might just feel forced into doing it. And it makes sense because you want an elite closer. It's important to have an elite closer. We saw how big of a deal it was for the Padres in the playoffs last year that they could rely on their bullpen and they could trust Josh Hader to come in and close out games. Josh Hader was insane in the playoffs. And he's one of the few guys that you really have that much faith coming in and just being like, yeah, he's going to come in and just be dominant. So I don't know. It's tough, but I don't know. What are your final thoughts on Hader as an extending Josh Hader?
So the one thing I will keep saying and we're always going to say, every single time, AJ Preller should have never thought of Adrian Morejon as a starter if they didn't try to extend him into being a starter and just let him throw the 60 innings a year. You could have had your replacement Hader right there. He throws 97. He's got a killer slider, and he has a pretty dominant knuckle change. And if you just let him come out of the bullpen and let him work his stuff through there and get MLB experience out of the bullpen, you had your replacement Hader. But every single time, you just want to test the limits of what he can do by putting him in to be a starter, and he gets hurt. When it does happen again, he got hurt. Keep him as a reliever, and hopefully you have your replacement in Hader right there. Because realistically, I'd much rather go after a starter than I would after a dominant closer. I think a closer is easier to replace than a solid 3-4 guy that you would be getting out of Lugo and Blake Snell. I mean, I really hate that Lugo has an opt-out, but Blake Snell, I mean, second half Blake Snell is a monster. You can't just replace that easily.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Chase. I'd much rather go after a starter than I know I saw that. That was hilarious. Keep in mind, Jacob Cronenworth was Shohei Ohtani before Shohei Ohtani. So, you know how that goes.
Out Mookie Betts.
He struck out Mookie Betts. You're absolutely right, Chase. You're absolutely right. But going back to Josh Hader, from a team standpoint, you understand that this guy is phenomenal. He's going to help you whenever he comes in the 8th, 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10 most of the time. He's going to win you that ball game. And even from a marketing standpoint, I mean, everyone gets super excited when the trumpets come on. Everyone used to get excited for Hell's Bells, stuff like that. From a marketing standpoint, it is also a genius move. However, another thing is they want to be in on Shohei Ohtani. How are you going to do that if you're giving $20 million to a guy that's going to throw one inning? And I mean, it sounds like we don't like Josh. I mean, it might sound, to some people like we don't like Josh Hader. We don't want Josh Hader. Trust me, we want Josh Hader. I think we all want Josh Hader. It's the price that's a little scary. And you look at it, Edwin Diaz signed his contract at 29 years old. Josh Hader will be doing the same, if not 30 years old. Diaz got $20 million coming off his best year. Well, Josh Hader's been on his best years. That dude's been on his shit for years. He's been magnificent. And great trade by AJ Preller, by the way. I have to throw that in there because I was just revisiting it like yesterday, and I was like, wow, like I can't put it down. Now, the thing that's kind of keeping me from saying no, I don't completely want him is, hey, Preller's gonna try. He's gonna try. He's gonna try and fit all these guys on one book. He loves Josh Hader. Josh Hader loves San Diego. It would be really, really hard to try and talk AJ Preller out of trying to extend Josh Hader. And I see Gil said, are we planning to pay 2 closers? 2 closers isn't a bad thing if one is setting the other guy up in the 8th. I mean, that sounds great to me. That's what Suarez did last year. And we won a lot of games because of that last year. We won a lot of playoff games because of that last year. It's evident that that is something that you want out of your pen. However, it's a scary thing because it's just so much for a guy that's only going to provide you one, maybe. And keep in mind, this is a maybe because a lot of the time, or like to start the season this year, it was, oh man, we got to try to get to Josh Hader. We got to try to get to Josh Hader. And we weren't able to for a little bit. So it's no guarantee that you're even going to see him that often. And that's also a factor that goes into this. So, when talking about a Josh Hader extension, there are pros, there are cons, and the pros of his skill, I mean, everything's there. But with what the Padres might be trying to do, it might not fit.
Yeah, my final thoughts are they're going to try to extend him most likely. And it's really just going to depend on, okay, like, is it actually going to work out? Are you going to be able to replace Blake Snell, potentially go after Ohtani, do whatever you want to do? That's really just going to depend on Peter Seidler. Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, because that's what's happened every single time. I don't know, the Padres, not even us, but just like everyone in the fan base, like, even if you're like not trying to be like pessimistic, like in the back of your head, you're like, can they really do this? Can they really re-sign Manny Machado after Xander Bogaerts? Oh, yes, they can. Look at that. Boom, they do it. Right? Like we see that a lot with them. So I think that's really going to be what it depends. And hopefully this is something where Peter Seidler goes, I don't care. Josh Hader's good. Look at Josh Hader. We want Josh Hader back. We're going to pay him, and it's not going to matter. But if it does matter and it prevents you from getting someone else, then that's where the question marks really emerge. So, Isaac, you said it, and Chase, I know you feel the same way. Like, we all love Josh Hader and want Josh Hader to be a Padre for a long time. It's just does it work? Does it work? Are you going to be able to replace different guys? Are you going to be able to stay good? Or is that going to hurt you down the road? And I think that's just the only question mark with it, which I think it's a very fair question mark, but we'll see how it plays out.